yourself and others. And I like the cartoon to start with. So basically I pay a life coach to get asked lots of tough questions, and he doesn't give me any answers. And the coach replies that that would be about right. So what I will be sharing with you is some personal stories about how I experience coaching myself. I will also share with you how I define coaching and how coaching is defined by many other people as well, because there's a lot of, mixed feelings about what it is, etc., etc. We'll do some very basic practices, and at the end of the session I have something to give to you as well. It's just 2 pieces of paper, some exercises you can actually use to practice in school. Good morning, welcome. What I want to emphasize on is that you can use it when communicating with students, with colleagues in your department, within the management team, from a management perspective, when you are dealing with staff. You can use it from all kinds of different angles. I do want to warn you in the sense that do not practice this too much on your spouse. I did this, and that sometimes it's a bit frustrating for the spouse because he just wants to have a fight once in a while, which is perfectly fine and perfectly understandable as well, because we all have this craving at some points. To start with, I'm just going to give you a number, like in a PE session, and then you're going to sit with your group of teachers or whatever background you have. I think I counted around 30, 31, so I'll count from 1 to 8. Please remember your number, and then find the people you're in the group with. And from 1 to 8, just do it clockwise. Numbers 1 over here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just go around the corner. So remember your number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. Yep. Numbers 1 over here, numbers 2 next to it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hi, Em. You want to join?
Is it just started or finished?
We just started.
Okay, right.
So, you coming in now makes you number 2.
Okay.
So you need to find the other number 2s over there. Yeah? So, once you've settled down in your group, the assignment is over there. Sit in the group you are assigned to, and come up with one sentence, or maybe even one word, that defines coaching as you believe as it should be presented this afternoon. So it's a little bit about your expectations maybe, but it's a bit more formal than personal expectations. It's about your groups. There's another number 3 coming in, please. My Talim colleague. This is your group, number 3. Number 4, please come in. 5, 6. So these are the numbers 4, 5, Sorry? 5? And then you're number 6? Number 6? Here? The other members of the group will tell you what to expect. Come up with one sentence, and instead of writing it down on a piece of paper, write it down on the board, please. Write it on the whiteboard. Yeah? Once you're ready with that, defining it, write it on the whiteboard. Thank you. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm not going to tell you what is a right or wrong answer, because that's not how it works in coaching. There's no such thing as a wrong answer. I see a lot of very encouraging things, because it's all about helping each other, and that's what it's all about with coaching. You need to set up a situation between you and your peers, with you and your students, that you actually feel safe and that you're able to facilitate and motivate to make sure that you get the best out of the other person. And maybe when doing so as well in coaching, there's a lot of reflectiveness in it as well. During the presentations, I will probably come back to a few of the things that have been written down. The next thing is a very, very personal exercise I want you to do. You all have, because I said sticky note on the presentation, but you all have this nice book given to you by the KHDA. Just write very short down, in a short sentence, what are your personal expectations for this session? So it's not a collaborative working, but you as an individual. And I want you to think that through, and then maybe at the end of the session as well, reflect whether this session has provided you what you expected, and if not, what is missing. And if something is missing, please feel free as well to come up to me and ask me about it. I'm not guaranteeing that I can provide you with the answer, but I can at least try. So it's all about what you will get out of it, what you expect to get out of it. Because after all, we are all lifelong learners. Hi. Find a spot. You're more than welcome. Such a big crowd. Just happy I don't have to do any marking for this group. It's quite... So, everybody finished? Let's move on. I didn't introduce myself yet. I just said you were all welcome, and then I put you straight to work, which is maybe a little bit impolite. But my name is Hendrik Willem Vlier, if you pronounce it correctly. I'm Dutch. And I'm a history teacher and a phase leader at Jumeira Baccalaureate School in Jumeira 1. And apparently I am a certified coach, whatever that means. Basically, I came here in the UAE 4 years ago, not because I was so lucky to have landed a teaching job here in the UAE, but because my wife pursued her career at a big pharmaceutical company, and I decided it would be a little bit lonely to stay back home in the Netherlands just by myself, so I followed her. And I was telling some people today as well, it was really, really difficult for me to actually find a job here in education. Because I'm not a native speaker, and I know how the processes work in schools, and I completely understand that. But back home, I had a leadership role in a grammar school, and the Ministry of Education asked me to become a coach for them, and I was coaching newly appointed principals and vice principals. So that's how I got myself into coaching. And I've been coached myself before as well, and I have always experienced it very, very helpful. I'm going to share a few personal stories about that, how it helped me. We tried to come up with a definition. I'm not saying, there's a few things that and this is a personal opinion, what it is not. It's not teaching. Because as a coach, you are not the person that provides the answers and the skills. And you're not mentoring as well, because as a mentor, for example, I always try to use an example. A mentor for a new appointed teacher can be, for example, an experienced colleague who knows his way around the school, knows his way around the system of a new curriculum maybe, and he mentors the new colleague in pointing out maybe you should do this, and this is the best way to handle that. And again, that is providing very tangible information. And you're not a buddy as well. It's always very important when you're coaching somebody that there's a vote of confidence between them. But that doesn't mean that you're buddies, best friends. That means as well that you're going to ask very, very uncomfortable questions just to make somebody think, just to pinpoint the blind spot that might be existing with a student, with a colleague, anybody. And And it's about powerful questions. And that's the angry monkey from an American comedy show. And he's always in the closet, and sometimes he shows his angry face, and he scares you. And what is the angry monkey? And what does that mean? And next to that, it is a question that was asked to me by a coach. I was being coached when I was doing a leadership program in the Netherlands, and I had my own personal coach, and I was working at a school, and it was a tough school. It was a tough neighborhood school. And it was so tough that the school was struggling with numbers. And at that point, at some point, City Council decided that the next academic year, we're talking about October, the school would be closed. So the staff would be without a job, and students wouldn't have a school anymore. And I was angry. I was the angry monkey. And the angry monkey was blaming everybody. The angry monkey was blaming City Council. The angry monkey was blaming the real estate developers that would actually had promised to improve the neighborhood. We're talking about 2009, you know, crisis just hit in, and nothing happened anymore in that specific neighborhood. I was blaming my boss because I believed he wasn't fighting for us properly. And I was this angry man. And then I had a session with my coach, and I was venting my anger. And then I still remember, she asked me a question, and she said, "How do you want to be remembered? If next, in 5 years, you meet a colleague from this school at a conference, or maybe a student, and he or she will see you, what will be the first thing that pops up in her or in his mind? How do you want to be remembered?" And I was like, oh, that is, do I want to be remembered as the angry monkey? And that made me realize that I am just a little puppet. I cannot change the political situation for the school. I cannot change my boss. I cannot change the real estate developer. I cannot change the physics teacher who basically accepts a new job starting next month, which put me a little bit in a pickle. I cannot change that. Worry about the things you can actually change and have an impact upon. How do you want to be remembered? I can work with that. I'm not saying that everybody who worked with me at that school likes me today when they see me, or they have fun memories of me. But my goal that year was to do as good as possible for the students that were still at school, and build a strong relationship with the teachers at that school as well, as long as it was needed. So some of them I regularly speak. Some of them, I know they don't like me, because they blame me stuff, which is perfectly understandable as well. But I like this question. And whenever I'm angry, this is the question that pops up into my mind. So, as a coach, what will you be discussing with students, our colleagues? And this is from Covey. I assume we all heard from Covey. Maybe not. Doesn't make much of a difference. It's about the circle of influence, and you are in the middle of that. And that's what you can actually help find out the people you're dealing with as well. And the circle of influence is full of positive energy, hopefully. You can encourage people, you can motivate people, and how do you do that? And then there's a circle of concern, which is outside that circle of influence. And that circle of concern has a lot to do with frustration, or anger, or worries. And whatever you do, that worries still exist. So that's because you're overreaching. You're trying to change things that are out of your power. And just give you an example of a student. You're dealing with a student. A student is frustrated about his or her relationship with a teacher. And maybe you're a homeroom teacher or a counselor, and you're trying to build that relationship. And it's very difficult to discuss that kind of matters with a student, in the sense that saying to the student, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that, because then the student becomes very defensive. But if you ask the student to do a little step back, say like, okay, you're doing physics. You're doing physics. What is it you want? What is it you want? I want to get a good grade. Okay. How? How are you going to get a good grade? Yeah, he or she needs to... No. How will you get a good grade? What is it you need to do? You cannot change Mr. X or Ms. Z. What is it that you need to do? And then, my microphone, just put it back on. So that is the circle of influence, and that's how you can encourage people you're working with get into that positive energy again, because they actually can work and think about matters. They have a sort of direct satisfaction out of it, a positive vibe, a positive energy. And if you're dealing with students or with everybody, it's all about the powerful questions of coaching. Because as a coach, you help people find solutions within themselves. Instead of you providing them your solution, you are helping them to find their own solution. Basically giving them ownership and empowering them as well. And make them aware of the power they have about the positive energy that is within them as well. So what are the powerful questions? Why? Any question that starts with why. Why are you doing this? How? How do you want to be remembered? What is it you're doing? And why are you doing what you're doing? Of course, other questions can be useful as well. Who, when, where. Or any question that can be answered by yes or no. But those are questions that are not really enabling people to think. Because that kind of closed questions, when you ask a closed question like that, instant answer. Communication stops. Thinking stops. So that why and how and what questions are very, very important. And you can explain that with a metaphor of an iceberg. It's visible on the top, what's out above the water, and that's results and behaviors. And that's the things you can actually see. And what's under that is emotions and thinking and values and belief. It's very tough as a coach to get into values and belief. It's a dangerous area because there's all kinds of culture behind it as well. But when it comes to thinking and emotions, you can tap into that with the why, the how questions, and the what questions. Because it's the things that you don't really see immediately. And when you do this, I always use the metaphor of the chair. Because as a coach or as a teacher, and we've all been there, I'm still a teacher, I started as a teacher, somewhere in between there was something else, but we all know how it is. So you're having a talk with anybody you're trying to help by coaching. And the person is telling his story, and you're listening. And then suddenly something is said that triggers your mind. And your mind is triggered, and you move forward. Your whole body goes forward. What's at the front of your mind at that moment? Not what the other one is saying, but what you want to say. So whenever you're coaching and you're asking this why, how, what question, be patient. That's why I always say, feel the back of your chair. Lean back. Open up. If you ask the why and the how question, or the what question, it's very, very likely that there won't be an immediate answer. It might even take a minute. And that is an uncomfortable silence the first time it happens to you. But I promise you, you get used to it. You just sit back and you relax and you just wait. Because eventually, especially students, young people, eventually they start talking. Because they find the silence uncomfortable as well. But as soon as you hear something and you want to respond to it, there's a natural response of ourselves to move forward. And at that moment, you're not really listening anymore. So always try to lean back, which I believe is very important. Because if you lean back, you're able to find what is the true issue. And I'm going to share a story that happened to me when I was coaching a colleague, and it was a geography teacher. Any geography teachers in the room? Yeah. Geography is a difficult subject because it has social geography and it has physical geography, which is basically two very, very different kinds of... It's not the same discipline, but it's put into this subject in secondary school, what we call geography. And at that moment, I was working as a vice principal at a grammar school, a very, very esteemed grammar school. It's a grammar school in the Netherlands. It's sort of the same as in the UK. It's a lot of status and there's a lot of difficult kids as well because they are very, very bright, which is very entertaining. But we hired a new teacher, and he was a social geographer. And the senior students were testing him. And they found out in 2 lessons that this is a social geographist and he doesn't know much about physical geography. Because it's not his field of expertise. And they were challenging him with all these goofy questions. Too difficult to answer questions. And then they made fun of him. That's how kids can be, very tough. So he came to me complaining about the behavior of the kids. And I agreed with him. They were not being very polite and they were not being very respectful to the teacher. And I talked with the students, and of course the students promised to change their behavior and wouldn't do it again. But of course they did it again. Of course. And at some point I was talking with a student and I said, well, what happened last lesson that he got so angry? Well, we asked him a question, he didn't know the answer, we started laughing. I said, well, what is the question then? And he gave me the question, I'm like, oh, that is like... I wonder even if a physical geographer would have known that question. He probably picked up something at National Geographic Channel or I don't know what. And that made me think at some point. So I was talking with the teacher. And I said to him, I said, well, why did you reply to that? Why did you give an answer to that question? I said, well, I'm a teacher. I should be able to always provide the answers. I said, but you're not a physical geographer. He said, no, but I work at a grammar school, and these are supposed to be the best teachers in the country. And if I can't, give an answer to a student, I'm not good enough. So by asking the question why and how and what, we finally came to the point that he found out that he was insecure. He was the angry monkey when the classes weren't going the way he wanted them to go. But at the root of the problem was his own insecurity. Did the students misbehave? Yes. Were they disrespectful? Yes. But what was the quick fix? The quick fix was not responding to them. It was like being reflective. How can I deal with this situation? I said as well, I work in a grammar school. It's all about Latin and Greek as well, and Greek culture and Roman culture and that kind of stuff. I'm an historian. I'm a very geeky historian. I read lots of boring books about history. But there's one thing I don't like. I wouldn't say hate, that's a strong word. But those classics, I never liked it. I probably will never like it. I had great difficulties passing my exams in university in my first years to pass those exams. So whenever a student asks me a question about Pericles, I'm like, yeah, no he is, but that's about it. So I told that teacher, you need to grow confident about the fact that you don't know all the answers. When they have a question for you, and you don't have the answer, say like, I don't know. But I'll get back to you. I'll try to find out for you. And if they say and make fun of you, oh sir, why don't you know it? Then you explain why you don't know. And then there's a whole different story, and there's a whole different dynamic came into existence. He had still issues, dealing with the students because, he had a reputation, so it took a few years to actually come out of it. But it's always important with students and teachers and everybody to find out what is the root of the problem. And I strongly believe that many solutions lie within asking questions. I don't like the classics, but I like this guy, Socrates. Although he didn't believe in writing, because he believed then if you write stuff down, you narrow down opinions, etc., etc. So everything we know about him is due to Plato. But Socrates basically said, if you want to grow wisdom, if you want to grow as a person, instead of arguing with people, you should ask questions. Because Socrates said, if you ask a question, and it's a very tough question for your opponent to answer, then your opponent might change his opinion. However, Socrates said, if I'm very convinced about my own opinion and based upon my own opinion, I ask a question, and the answer that comes out of it is very good, I might change my opinion as well. So being a coach and being helpful to others and empowering other people, I found out as well that it provides you insight about how human beings think and how you, as a person, deal with situations as well. Because even the questions you're asking sometimes gives away a little bit of the solution already as well. So the power of question to me is very important because it enables you to really, truly listen. To wrap it up, lean back. Ask questions. Listen, but don't give the answers. And empower people, empower people to find answers. And the last one is, it makes me always a little bit giggle because it's the same as in Dutch. Ja maar, you say that, yes but. It's such an annoying answer, right? You tell a student something to do something and then the answer is, yes but, oh no, I don't want to hear that. So that's the same thing as well. And actually, you know, when I'm discussing with students or when I was a vice principal as well, when I ask a question, I on many occasions basically said, before you start your answer, it cannot start with the two words yes but. It's just not allowed. So sometimes, going back to, you're not a buddy. You're not a buddy. When I was being trained as a coach, we had one of the trainers. He was coaching in a way that he was really confronting people. And he was really making people angry. And he said, I'm not doing that all the time, but sometimes you just have to push and push and push. Just to ask these questions, like, he could be almost aggressive. Like, why are you doing that? Oh, that is... So there's all kinds of different ways of doing that. But it's always important, remember, keep asking the questions. Questions? When looking back, when you wrote down your initial expectations, you don't have to give me an answer, but just reflect on yourself. Was it what you expected? Or was it totally different? Are you missing anything? If you're missing anything, please feel free to come and see me. Ask me afterwards. And coming back to what the different groups made, don't feel bad if you said coaching is mentoring, because I said at the start it's not mentoring. To me it's not the same. But there's a lot of, it all comes together. As a teacher, you sometimes teach, and sometimes you coach, and sometimes you mentor. To me, it's almost like coaching, put it in your toolbox. Use it as a tool. And when you want to become a very strong, inspirational leader for your students, you are able to change yourself to whatever the situation needs. When somebody comes to you, you're like, I need to be the teacher now, and I'll teach. And now I need to be a mentor. But now I need to be a coach. So there's a lot of things to say. It is definitely about motivation. Not only yourself. Because if you are a true coach and you help people find the solutions yourself, you're not frustrated anymore because if they don't do what you want them to do. Because that's the frustration of many people as well. And it's about empowering. So no questions. KHDA has asked me to put this slide on as well, session feedback, so I would really appreciate if you do that. I'm here for questions, and thank you so much for patiently listening to me. Thank you.